Good afternoon, everyone. Appreciate you being on time and prompt, and we will get started here in just a few moments as we let everyone arrive. Appreciate your participation. Good afternoon, everyone. Appreciate everybody arriving on time. We're going to start here in just a moment, so bear with us. Okay, everyone, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for the regional implementation investment opportunity round two that we are starting. This is the first of two office hours that we will be hosting during the month of September to help answer any questions that you may have about round two. So with that, I am happy to introduce in a moment our presenter, Derek Kirk, but I will just advise that this is a webinar format. We are recording this to be posted on the GO-Biz website, and we will be using questions asked after the presentation. You'll raise your hand to form the queue, and we will provide verbal live questions to be asked. We will also monitor the Q&A box that is located at the bottom of the screen. We will be monitoring that throughout the presentation, and we will try to answer those following the presentation as well. So with that, I'm going to introduce Derek Kirk. He's our Senior Advisor for Economic Policy for GO-Biz, and he helps lead the Regional Economic Development Initiative team. And he will start us off with a brief presentation specific to round two of the implementation grant program under Jobs First. Derek, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thanks, Dana. I'm going to ask my team if we can remove any bots from the chat or from the call today, because I'm just generally would prefer not to have them on the call. And if we can share the screen, we can go ahead and get started with the deck. Okay, so we're going to walk through today the Regional Investment Initiative Implementation Grant Round 2. As a reminder to everyone, this is the RFP that was originally released in February of 2025, earlier this year, noted that we're doing two rounds. So there is not a new RFP that will be released. The RFP that was released in February stands. We obviously made a couple of adjustments through an errata on the timeline for round two, bumping it up in order to capture all of the momentum that so many of you rolled out in round or have from round one projects, but also from the implementation of the regional plans across California. Next slide. I want to just take a moment. Deanna noted I'm the Senior Advisor for Economic Policy at GO-Biz. We have a really incredible team here at GO-Biz that's actively working on this. Today on the call, Deanna Stroud, whom everyone at this point I think knows, is our Associate Deputy Director and leads our regional engagement team, including this grant program. Ethan Nash, our Economic Research Coordinator, Krista and Shawnee are new to the GO-Biz team. They are grants coordinators. Krista, in particular, is helping us on this grant, and Shawnee is playing backup on this one and is lead on several others for our office. So thrilled to have them. One staff person that's not noted here and is out today, Julia Jackson, our regional engagement manager, who's also involved in this work. So we've got a good team here at GO-Biz that's helping to coordinate this, and this is the crew that you have on the call today. Next slide. So as a reminder, that GO-Biz, in partnership with the Employment Development Department and the Labor Agency, is making available approximately $45 million in grant funding within the implementation phase round 2 of the RII program. As a reminder, this implementation phase is designed as a 2-phase competition, one where we identify and select regional coalitions of partners across the state, and then and projects that they are proposing, excuse me, that are advancing sector growth in one or more regions, and then 2, looking to invest in highly competitive individual projects from within that cluster. We'll talk a little bit more about that timeline, but really our goal in this is to identify clusters of projects across California that are working to support a single identified cluster from the placemat in the economic blueprint. And then, as noted from the first round, really trying to identify how many, if any, of the projects within the cluster will be able to be funded under this round. Next slide. So we are going to extend 2 office hours this month to review the RFP as it currently stands. The office hours in particular are going to focus on an updated timeline for round 2 application process. We're going to review the key elements and requirements that are outlined in the RFP, and we'll provide a little bit of time for Q&A related to round 2 project applications. After the presentation wraps, we'll have everybody raise their hand and ask the questions verbally, and then this webinar will be recorded and made available for folks to view afterwards. Next slide. Okay, so let's talk about timing. We obviously have bumped the timing for our round 2 up quite a bit from January. Again, our co-chairs really wanted to ensure that we harness the momentum that so many of you have gained over the last several months and years, really, in the implementation of your regional plans. And so our notice of intent, which is the first requirement of this program of phase 2, is due on November 5th. Everybody, even if you applied in round 1, if you want to be considered in round 2, has to either submit a notice of intent or be a part of a notice of intent with a coalition of partners. About a month later, about 28 days later, the pre-application is due on December 3rd. And then the full application is due on January 16th. Hopefully, this gives everybody a little bit of time over the holidays to close their computers, spend a few days with family, and then wrap up any last application details. Each of these days, the deadline timing is 5 p.m. Pacific time. So November 5th at 5 p.m., December 3rd at 5 p.m., and January 16th at 5 p.m. And we do hold strict to the 5 p.m. times on each of these applications. So make sure that you are submitting your notices of intent pre-application, and if invited, your full application with plenty of time to spare before that 5 p.m. deadline. Next slide. Grants that are awarded within round 2 are anticipated, just as round 1, to have a period of performance of 24 months, and the anticipated start date is August of 2026. So we will have a chunk of time between applications being due in January, some of our formal processes from scoring our pitch competition and contract negotiation for an anticipated start date of August 2026. So 24 months from August 2026 is that POP. The minimum award amount for individual projects within the cluster is $500,000. Please pay attention to that. We will not accept individual projects that are less than $500,000. On the flip side, there is no maximum award amount for individual projects within the project cluster. So a minimum of 500,000 per project, not for the whole cluster, per project, and there's no maximum award amount. The reason we opted not to do a maximum award amount is because as we're looking to seek other investors into this, we really truly want to understand what is it going to take to fully implement the project at the scale you are hoping. There are no matching fund requirements as part of this, although we are looking in the scoring process at the capital stack that you're developing and the things that you're exploring, but we are not requiring a formal match. And just as a note, during the review of the full applications, if invited, we reserve the right to adjust the award amounts on the top scoring individual projects depending on the availability of funds. So you might ask for 10 million and we may give you a haircut to 8 million. Know that we also will allow adjustments on deliverables because we would be adjusting the dollars that your project would be awarded as well. Next slide. So let's talk a bit about the application process overall and get in. Excuse me. So in phase one for us is really about how are you building regional coalitions and identifying projects to be within your cluster. So if you're interested in applying for this funding, you need to start networking with your partners in your region. Maybe you're thinking about cross-regional coalitions, pulling in private sector partners, although private sector partners are not eligible for this funding directly. But bringing in other investors, thinking about who in my region or who in my cross-regional network can I engage with to advance an industry sector that I'm working to coalesce, right? You may bring in private sector partners that want to participate in a workforce development program. You may bring in public sector partners. Who is it that what you want to be a part of that coalition? Your coalition isn't limited to only the people that are proposing projects, right? You should think broadly about how are you building out a coalition of partners in the geographic space that you're looking to support that want to advance the single industry sector. From there, we want you all to be thinking about the clusters of projects that you want to propose for funding. We define project clusters as between 3 and 8 aligned and interconnected projects that can be construction or non-construction that are organized collectively under a single vision to grow one tradable sector that's identified in the accelerate or bet categories within the state economic blueprint in a regional economy or economies. So I may come up with 2 projects that are working collectively to advance the quantum industry. That is not a project cluster as defined for us, right? You got to have between 3 and 8 aligned and interconnected projects. The projects that were awarded in round 1 all had really great storytelling about how their projects will feed off of each other and collectively work to grow an industry and to create opportunities in a wide kind of swath around job creation. And that can be an accelerator or a workforce development program or a construction project, lots of different opportunities. A project cluster is also not 2 quantum projects and a fusion project, because we're saying one project cluster needs to be 3 to 8 projects around one tradable sector. This isn't an opportunity for us to kind of think broadly about how are we advancing multiple industries in our region. We really want to understand the work that you all are doing to advance one tradable sector. For those of you that have been involved in your regional collaboratives over the last couple of years, and particularly through the process of developing the activation plans, what are the projects that you all identified in your activation plan that are actively, you believe will actively move your region toward job creation, attraction, preservation, and access in one of those accelerate or bet sectors overall? We are open to both the macro sector identification, like aerospace and defense, or a subsector identification like commercial space. One note on the if you are going the macro sector route, like working lands and water, that doesn't suddenly mean ag production is eligible. It would just mean that ag tech, bioeconomy, blue economy, those subsectors that are in accelerate and bet are eligible to be a part of this application process. You can look at page 5 of the RFP for additional descriptions of project clusters and regional coalitions. Please, please, please go in and look at this definition because this was a bit of a hiccup and a hang up for some folks in round 1. Next slide. So as a reminder, accelerate and bet is where we're focused. This is the entire placemat. Financial and professional services, not an eligible sector for this funding. But again, you could say life sciences, or you could say med tech and pharma biotech. You could say clean economy, or you could say carbon management, or hydrogen, or offshore wind. So focusing in on that middle blue and the far right light blue, and again, at the macro sector level or at the subsector level is where we are hyper targeting. Next slide. So some additional information around phase 1. In phase 1, we need a lead entity representing the regional coalition to submit a notice of intent, which is there's a link in the RFP to submitting this, outlining the target sector and the associated regions. A lead entity is eligible to submit one notice of intent in this round, just as they were in the last round. So me, and XYZ corporation or nonprofit that I represent, I'm only allowed to submit one notice of intent in this funding cycle, essentially meaning I can only represent one coalition. That doesn't mean I'm not going to be a part of multiple coalitions, because there may be multiple in my community or in my region that, or in a cross-regional dialogue that I want to be a part of. But you can only serve as a coalition lead in one notice of intent in this cycle. Deanna, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have moved the notice of intent to a link, a submission link, correct?
The pre-application is still a link that will be provided. The notice of intent will be, we will move that to a online form for people to upload and provide. And
Okay.
we'll add that link.
Okay, thank you. So we'll have a link for notice of intent submissions for folks, hopefully to make this just a little bit easier as we cross the finish line. Our apologies for not having that up, but stay tuned for that in the RFP itself overall. Project clusters, as you're back to thinking about those 3 to 8 projects in this notice of intent, you need to have 2 or more of the following project categories. So ecosystem support, infrastructure, workforce development, and any of the other anchors that were on the placemat that we just looked at. So if I have 3 projects, I need at least 2 of these lists from below. A project cluster can't be 3 workforce development projects. We will not accept that. That is not a project cluster. We want multiple projects from within at least 2 of these cluster or project categories overall And again, you can see more information on page 7 of the RFP for how we define and describe the project categories. Next slide. Okay, so notice of intent requirements, a little bit more here. An eligible lead entity representing a project cluster must submit a notice of intent outlining the targeted sector and the regions anticipated being included in the cluster. That's not a mandate for what must occur and what must be included, but that is, as you're thinking about advancing quantum, what regions do you anticipate being included in the cluster to help us and other applicants, when we publish this list, understand who's doing what across the state and how you might come together? I believe last year or earlier this year, we had something like 140 notices of intent submitted and then only something like 70 pre-applications. While some folks dropped off because they realized this grant might not be for them, there was a lot of consolidation that happened, and it was very exciting to see those opportunities come together. Again, lead entities can only submit one notice of intent. The RFP states that the notices of intent must be submitted via email. We may be submitting a link on that one, but we will send out clear communication, and we will still accept things via email. But hoping to try to mitigate some of those hiccup points that folks hit last or earlier this year in the first round. So notices of intent have to be submitted by 5 p.m. on November 5th. No late submissions will be accepted. So nobody's going to be added at 5:01 to this notice of intent list. We're stopping it and capping that at 5 o'clock. And then the notice of intent must include the name of the lead entity that's leading the coalition, the primary point of contact, so a name and an email address, the sector with which the coalition is rallying around, and the regions with which the region is anticipating having projects in and or supporting. The notice of intent via email cannot be longer than a page, and it needs to be in Century Gothic 12-point font. Next slide. So once we get to the notice of intent on November 6th, that list is going to get published on our website. So all of you can start negotiating and engaging with each other overall and understanding what that looks like. We will weed out anybody that submits a notice of intent that does not meet the guidelines. So if you submit a notice of intent with 2 projects, you will not find your name on the list that's published, and you will not be eligible to submit a pre-application because you didn't follow directions. If you submit a notice of intent to advance the healthcare industry, you will not find yourself on our published notice of intent list because you didn't follow the guidelines. 3 to 8 projects, right? And advancing one tradable sector from Accelerate or BET on there. We'll then publish that list the next day. And that'll be the list of folks that are eligible to submit a pre-application via a web form that's in the RFP, and will be provided again to all of those in that are submit eligible notices of intent. The pre-application web form needs to be completed by 5 p.m. on December 3rd. And again, at 5:01, we're done. You will not be, your submission will not be accepted. The pre-application web form needs to include answers and we'll go through these, there's 8 questions, less than 300 words per question. So this is a shift from the first round to note for folks. We allowed folks to submit written documents, and we got questions like, can we submit graphs and all variety of things? We want really short, concise, 300-word responses in this web form. Next slide. So the first couple of questions. 1, we want you to provide a brief overview of each project comprising the proposed project cluster, including a description and a name of the entity leading the project. Really clean, crisp elevator pitch descriptions or less, and the name of the entity that will be leading that project. The second question is, why is the project cluster relevant to the economic future in California and the region? You should be pulling data from both your regional plan and the state blueprint. In what ways is the regional coalition well positioned to advance this cluster, right? Help us understand that this cluster didn't suddenly come together because one day you woke up and thought, we need some money for this and I'm going to go find some friends, right? How have you been working collectively to advance this cluster, and how are the partners within working collaboratively together to do that? The fourth question is, what evidence suggests that all the proposed contributing projects are critical for the success of the project cluster? Help us understand the thought that went into pulling these projects together, why you believe these projects will move the needle, and the evidence that you believe helps you to articulate that claim. Next slide. The fifth question is, what is the job creation potential for the project cluster overall? And what's the profile of those jobs? So again, you should be pulling this information from your regional plans, maybe an activation plan, other information, the economic blueprint on what types of jobs are going to be created in this space. Number six is, what is the financing plan for the proposed project? So help us understand if you're asking us for 100% of the funds, if you've built a capital stack, which we love, if you've got other resources that are coming to bear at this. Question seven, what potential blockers do you see to successful implementation, and how will the applicant proactively address them? What are the challenges going to be in this space? And be honest with us, right? We want to work collaboratively with you through those. That's not going to become a disqualifier necessarily, right? We want to understand truly that you understand that you're going into this with eyes wide open. And then question eight, what's the proposed timeline for completing the activities? You obviously have a 24-month period of performance, so we're interested in understanding what that looks like, and how will the application ensure this timeline, how will the applicant ensure that this timeline is achieved? You can read more about these questions in pages 19 and 20 of the RFP and see the questions and the scoring matrix that we'll use in the pre-application as we review these questions. Next slide. After we receive the pre-applications, we will score those internally and share them directly with the co-chairs of the Jobs First Council, Director Myers and Secretary Knox. They will review, and the selected pre-application finalists will become eligible to apply for the second phase of this, which is the full application. GO-Biz and Labor Agency will notify the lead entities within the coalition, those that submitted the pre-application on behalf of the regional coalition, and we will rely on those lead entities to help notify the full coalition. We will also email the application at that point. It will not be posted on our website at that point. That is a closed solicitation that we're inviting those applicants to submit. The full application needs to be submitted via email to regionalinvestment@gobiz.ca.gov by 5 p.m. on January 16th, 2026. Again, 5:01, you're not being considered. No late submissions. And again, a note on this one more time. GO-Biz, on behalf of EDD and the Labor Agency, may negotiate with individual project applicants to reduce the proposed budget for an awarded project pending budget availability. So for all of the projects that are submitted in the pre-application will be as part of those clusters. If the pre-application is selected, all 3 to 8 projects will be invited to submit a full application in this round. And each individual or entity project that's led by an entity needs to submit their own individual application by 5 p.m. on January 16th to be considered. Next slide. We will run full application roughly between January 26th and February 23rd. We are going to host a pitch summit, an investment summit, just as we did earlier this year. Invitations to the investment summit will be sent no later than March 2nd, just depending on our scoring process and the timing on that. We believe the investment summit is going to happen in mid-March. But the date is to be determined, and we reserve the right to move that up or down a little bit. And the final award announcements will happen in July of 2026. A couple of things to note here. is that we are scoring, and there will be a matrix in the full application that's shared with those that are invited to submit it. We also, I say we, the co-chairs, Director Myers and Secretary Knox, also look at things like geographic equity, the benefits of projects to disinvested communities, the capacity of the lead organization to complete the project, and the alignment of projects with the regional and state plans. So a couple of additional factors that you should be thinking about really from the start of building your coalition all the way to the submission of your full application. Next slide. A couple of notes on process. FAQs, all questions submitted to us, to the regional investment at gobiz.ca.gov email will be publicly available on business.ca.gov within 2 weeks of the final submission deadlines. You ask a question and we will post those on a bit of a rolling basis for folks. The NOI question deadline is October 24th at 5 p.m. The pre-app question deadline is November 19th at 5 p.m. And the full application deadline is December 12th at 5 p.m. So get your questions if you want them posted in advance of those deadlines into our regional investment at gobiz.ca.gov email before these timelines. Next slide. Okay, a couple of quick notes that I want to make before we wrap. And again, here's the email for questions across the board here. One, please pay attention in the RFP to entities that are eligible to submit grant applications. One very particular note, for-profit companies, businesses are not directly eligible for funding from this program. We are also paying very close attention to any organizations that are trying to act as a fiscal agent to a for-profit company to somehow make them eligible for this program. So we will not accept an organization that is applying for funding on behalf of a business to construct a project that the business will operate and benefit from. This funding is intended to support activities and projects that the eligible organizations will lead and manage with a variety of partners. So please, please, please pay attention and focus on that. Also, I said it before, but I'm going to say it again, 3 to 8 projects, one tradable sector as a part of this coalition. We are not blending sectors right across the board here. This isn't hydrogen and aircraft, play. You got to pick one and help us understand what you are doing to advance the sectors. I mentioned those 2 things because they came up a few times as causing some challenges for some applicants in round 1, and we're really hopeful to avoid that in round 2. The second piece is that we took some really positive feedback from folks about the full applications that were submitted and the clusters that submitted individual applications in the full app, and the reality that they were some were broken pretty heavily apart in the invitation to the pitch summit, and maybe only one of 6 projects was invited to the pitch summit, which obviously waters down and takes away the ability to tell that comprehensive story. We took that feedback. We've discussed with the co-chairs, and we'll be adjusting our scoring on the full application to make sure that the entire cluster may not make it through to the pitch session, but we are going to be more intentional about ensuring that we keep clusters as whole as possible in that final scoring process to be invited to submit to the pitch summit and to the investment summit, in those pitch sessions. So we appreciated the feedback, and it definitely was well received, and something we want to make sure that we are advancing in an intentional way as we move into this final round. With that, Dana, unless I've missed anything, I think we can turn it over for some questions.
Yeah, thank you, Derek. I will add on to what Derek said. In the chat, we did provide you with a link to both the updated RFP that includes the timeline, as well as the errata that identifies the change of the timeline that we made in the RFP itself. Those links are provided in the chat. If you have not revisited the RFP, we would ask that you do so. The errata reflects any changes to the timeline that were made in the RFP itself. So with that, we want to move into the live Q&A portion of today's webinar. And to do that, we're going to ask you, if you do have live questions, to please raise your hand and we will unmute you to come off and ask the question, and we will work our way through those with live questions. We also do have the Q&A box, and we will get over to that as we get through our live Q&A that we have here in the webinar. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look, and let's get started on our live Q&A. Hold on, let me get over to that side. Okay, we've got first up in the queue. Whoops, sorry, hold on. Okay. So we've got in the queue to start with Catherine Fuentes, Justin Salters, and Daryl Crutchfield. So, Catherine, we're going to pull you off mute, and you are live to ask your questions. Thank you.
Thank you all. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. So we are a for-profit organization. We provide childcare services to businesses who provide childcare throughout the state of California and throughout the U.S. We work with a lot of different partners, municipalities in the state of California. I just wanted to get a better understanding of sort of your last comment, Derek. Not looking at this from a fiscal sponsorship, but if we're obviously not the lead agency, but we wanted to be part of the holistic solution to a specific industry. Is that still considered like a fiscal sponsorship? Can you kind of just help me understand if there is a way where we can still submit alongside other municipalities or agencies, or does our for-profit status essentially make us ineligible?
Yeah, really great question, Catherine. So you wouldn't be able to apply directly, but any of your partners could apply. The difference in the scenario that you're talking about is at the end of the day, those partners are going to have some sort of procurement practice or contract that they're going to be able to and have to enter into to execute on this. And they may choose you in the end, or they may choose someone else, right? They have to have that process, and it's a procurement process that will be managed by the ultimately the awardee. But for any for-profit companies, we want the for-profit companies to be a part of coalitions, but ultimately the applicant would have the ability to execute still on the award, but through a variety of companies that may offer the same services.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Catherine. We're going to move to Justin Salters next, and then Daryl Crutchfield. You'll be following Justin. So, Justin, you are live.
All right. Thanks so much for the information. The RFP for eligible applicants, another question related to that, says applicants must be based in California. Our parent organization is a New York nonprofit, but we are working exclusively in California on the initiative on this project. Are we eligible? Or that's a question that I've got.
That's a new one for me. I don't think so, because the organization, as we have described it, sorry, I'm going to pull this up in the RFP. Organizations, sorry. The applicant must be based in California. Deanna, correct me if I'm wrong. We've interpreted this in the past as the organizations need to be registered and incorporated in the state of California, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So applicants based in California for us is incorporated and registered in the state of California. In a sense where there's an outside organization that is working in California, they'd need to help find a fiscal partner that's working in the state.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Justin, thank you. Daryl, you're up, and I'm going to bring you off mute. You have multiple questions in the chat also, or excuse me, in the Q&A. So we'll take a few moments to go through those as part of your live Q&A as well. So Daryl, you are up now.
Okay, thank you. How you doing? Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Thanks for having me today, and this is great. Thank you. Um, a couple of quick questions. In the area of construction or workforce development, are we allowed to use funding to provide like personal protection equipment like PPE for the clients to go through to help them get a job and do the training, like steel toe boots, hard hats, safety glasses? Can we utilize funding to give that to the clients and stuff like that?
Daryl, in workforce development, yes, you could use funding to provide supportive services to individuals. Construction is not an eligible tradable sector, and so like if a project is a construction project and you're contracting with a firm to build something, no, like all of that should be included in the firm's contract for development, and you shouldn't be buying that outside. But for workforce development, if there is a need for personal protective equipment on a workforce development project that is tied back to one of the tradable sectors, yes, you fund supportive services and PPE purchases.
Okay, thank you. And I'm glad you brought that up because I'm really foggy on that. What is tradable? What is a tradable? What is maybe I'm missing that part. What is a tradable? What is it?
So any of the sectors listed in the accelerate or bet buckets on that placemat that I shared on the screen. So aerospace and defense, semiconductors, life sciences, zero emission vehicles, quantum, fusion, any of those sectors that are listed under the accelerate and bet buckets in the state's economic blueprint. You can find that information at jobsfirst.ca.gov.
Okay, thank you. And what percentage of the funding can you be used to pay staff members? What is the percentage cap on that?
The administrative cap on this grant program is 10%.
Okay, and this probably last really when I can ask other questions another time. Can we pay clients that go through our programs a stipend at the end for completing the program?
On a workforce development program, yes. Yep.
Okay, and is there a cap on that amount?
No. I mean, our general rule of thumb in that is that the costs need to be reasonable,
Yes.
and we will have that conversation after award decisions and before contracts.
Okay, thank you very much. I won't hog up all the time. I'll contact you in the deadlines portion and get more clarity on those other things. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay. I am not seeing any more hands raised at this time, Derek, so we can pivot over to the Q&A. Sorry, just as I said that, Sheba, you raised your hand. So Sheba, we can go ahead and take you off mute and you can ask your question. Go ahead, Sheba.
Yeah, now I can see the button that I needed to press. Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi guys. I mean, you guys are doing a great job, obviously, and thank you for carrying us and walking us through that RFP in a much more concise way. I had a couple of questions here. So, specifically under if you would kindly, and I do not know if you can share this, what are your focus areas among the tradable sectors? The reason I ask this question is based on the awardees or the sectors or the focus areas that we saw on round number one, we didn't see any clean energy. Do you have any specific focus on clean energy this time around? So that would be my first question. I have a few other questions after that.
We are not having a focus industry. We've not identified a particular industry as a focus area. We've identified any of the industries in the accelerate and bet sectors as eligible for this funding. That is the line that we have at this moment.
Got it. Thank you. Let me get to the next question. So, if my screen would come up, uh, you so in your page on your page 7 of the document under the ecosystem support, which is the eligible projects segment of the document, you talk about targeted investment into market relevant research and development. Can you clarify that? We have some ambiguities about the phrasing. Is it research and development of the market, or are you talking about R&D related to the technology that would evolve the market?
Both. We are willing to fund both.
So in this case, you are willing to, from this solicitation, you are willing to do deep tech research?
Yes, as long as it's tied back specifically to the overall objectives, and it is part of the conversation of advancing a tradable sector. Yes.
Got it. Thank you so much. And I think, oh, my final question would be, how many awardees or project clusters are you intending to fund out of, I think you said like 45 million remains out of the total amount, right?
We are intending to fund $45 million, and that's as far as we know at this point. I mean, as a point of reference, we funded 11 projects and 4 clusters with $80 million. We don't have an expectation, an exact expectation of what that will look like. It may look similar to round one. It may look very different.
Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate the opportunity to ask the questions.
Yep.
Thanks, Shiva. Okay. Leanne McNulty has raised her hand. So Leanne, will take you off mute. You can ask your question live. Go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you. So from the a public community college standpoint, if we're already part of a regional project, for the round one, it would be acceptable for us to be a lead for our individual project in partnership with industry and maybe other community colleges and universities that fed into those pathways. Would that be correct?
I'm having a hard time understanding. Like, if is the question, if you're already involved in in an awarded project from round one, are you still eligible in round two?
Yes, this is, I was just trying to clarify if there are community colleges and industry and partners and school systems that are all partnered in the first regional collaborative. This second opportunity is an opportunity for single entities such as a community college to take the lead and really focus in on broadening something that's needed in the labor market regionally.
Anybody? I think I'm still struggling, and maybe you want to send a written question, Leanne, to make sure that we're actually catching you. No one, even entities that were awarded in round one are eligible for round two. If you're a part of a coalition of a project that was awarded in round one, you're still eligible for round two. That doesn't in any way negate your ability to apply for round two.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Leanne. We're going to move to the last raised hand. It's Kevin Harbour, and then we'll move into a couple of the Q&A questions in the Q&A box. So Kevin, we'll go ahead and take you off mute, and then we'll move into the Q&A box. Go ahead, Kevin.
Good afternoon, Derek. And
Yes, sir.
just wanted to ask, we were approved to submit the application in round one. We were not awarded, but in round two, we like to do upskilling, workforce development training, maybe across 2 or 3 tradable sectors. And so we would not be the lead. We would just want to partner with other organizations. Is that acceptable? Obviously, we would, have funding requests for that, but is that an acceptable project to team with someone on?
Like an upskilling workforce development project?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, assuming it's upskilling in one of the tradable sectors and accelerate and bet, the preservation of jobs and upskilling of jobs is definitely something that we're supportive of and would be eligible under this funding.
Precisely what I'm asking. Thank you.
You got it.
All right. Kevin, thank you. Derek, we're going to pivot over to the Q&A question box, and there are 2 that are similar in nature, one from Felicia, one from Christy, relative to what was round 1 and the awards in round 1. And for those sectors that were identified and awarded in round 1, will there be a different consideration for different sectors in round 2? And I'm kind of paraphrasing, but there's a question about, will those sectors that did not receive funding, will they be prioritized in round 2? How should people be viewing those sectors that did not receive funding?
We are not making any sectors ineligible or less appealing in the scoring process just because they were or were not awarded in round 1. So the co-chairs, as I noted in the deck, will be considering geographic equity and thinking about regions broadly, but we are not disadvantaging or disallowing any of the sectors that were awarded in round 1, simply because different folks are having different projects that are implementing sectors in different ways in different regions, and we want to hear about that work. So.
Great. Thank you. Then there's a question relative to the what is identified as a 10% administrative cap applying to program staff and direct services. I think this is a point where we can remind folks about our deliverables-based budget. But Derek, I'll let you respond to that.
Yeah, great question, Adrian. The 10% administrative cap is not inclusive of program support services. So the 10% administrative cap is really much more fiscal related on this, and thinking about the fiscal agent on the project, whether it's the actual proponent and doer of the work. That 10% is a fiscal related administrative cap. You can include staffing or other resources needs in the program budget as long as it's directly related to individuals that are providing those services. So if it's a trainer in a workforce development program, that cost and expense can be included in the program side versus in the administrative side. Really good question.
Great. Thanks, Derek. And then Stacy Cumberbatch, would you like to ask this question live to ensure that we're understanding what you're asking? Would you like to raise your hand on that? Or Derek, there's a question relative to a venture capital fund. Go ahead.
She's got her hand raised.
Okay. Sorry. I'm catching up. There you go, Stacy.
Thanks so much. I was really just trying to understand, to make sure that the project would qualify, and if it would qualify for infrastructure, because I consider it financial infrastructure, but I don't know if it would be considered ecosystem support. So trying to figure out where to place it. And then as well, the funds, for example, you're asking for a very specific project sector 1, for example. Fund managers will invest in more than one. So I didn't want that to be hit against, the fund, if that were the case. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Fabulous question, Stacy. It's good to see you. We love a good venture fund. We love a revolving loan fund. We particularly love venture funds. We love when applicants are telling us that they have options for equity based on investments that they're making. You can look at the LARDA Institute and the
Yep.
award that they got in round one and see that we love actually every single one of our clusters that were awarded. The four clusters had some sort of fund, investment fund that was incorporated in them. Love it. We
Amazing.
would consider it Stacy ecosystem support
Mm,
in ours. So it's a great question. We also we would require the initial investments that are made to go into the industry that is targeted by the cluster.
got it.
So I would say in that case, pick one of the macro sectors
Hmm.
rather, if you can, rather than one of the subsectors. That
Hmm.
gives you a little bit more flexibility. So clean economy instead of hydrogen, for example.
Makes sense.
However, after the initial investments are made, we walk away
Got it.
entirely. We still want to be partners with you and advance the fund, but we no longer have oversight once you have made the investment into the project or the company.
Hmm.
And so when you get your return, when that fund gets a return, you can invest it in any sector, in any project that suits the fund
Got
and the
it.
managers.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Derek. Thank you all.
Yeah, love a good investment fund. Take note of that, everybody.
Thanks, Stacy. Derek, there is a question from Catherine Fuentes relative to being a Catalyst awardee, but
Yeah.
also being interested in implementation eligibility. So we'll let you answer that one.
Um, yes. So we have several Catalyst projects that were awarded Catalyst projects by their region, and then also received funding from the implementation phase. Um, most every region, actually, I think probably 12 of 13 regions, has fully invested and has active contracts underway for their Catalyst phase projects. And many are moving into implementation across the board. It doesn't make you ineligible or provide any benefit if a project is a Catalyst project and is applying for the implementation phase funding.
Thank you. And then I think we've got time. Vikrant asks a question relative to the geographic equity consideration that our co-chairs consider as funding decisions are being made. So if you want to speak to the geographic equity consideration.
Sure. Yeah. Geographic equity for us has looked a little different as equity does in a variety in each of our rounds across the board. Obviously, in our planning and catalyst phase, equitable to us meant an equal distribution of dollars to every region, knowing that some regions are eligible or are able to gather outside resources to support their plans better than others and just have different levels of resources. Uh, the legislation requires that this implementation phase be issued on a competitive basis. And our co-chairs are really adamant about the idea of going all in on clusters of projects to advance tradable sectors. So there were only 7 regions that were awarded projects or a project under phase one. And they will actively consider the geographic equity elements of that and also what regions look like and what projects look like in round 2.
Thank you. Derek, we are at the 2:58 mark of the hour, and we do not have any additional questions in the Q&A box, nor do we have anybody's hand raised. So I think we can give everybody a minute and a half back of their Tuesday afternoon. Derek, if you'd like to close out with the final comment, happy to turn the floor over to you and thank everyone for their participation. Noting, we'll just add that the webinar will be posted on the GO-Biz publications page where the implementation RFP is located also. Derek,
Yep.
I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thanks, Deanna. So for any questions, you send those over to regionalinvestment@gobiz.ca.gov. And we will get those answered and posted on our website on the dates that we shared. You can also find the RFP at business.ca.gov under the publications tab. There's a special accordion with all of this information, and we're happy to answer any of your questions and appreciate you considering applying for this funding in round 2. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.